Hi there, welcome to The Accidental Pop Star here on YouTube. The Accidental Pop Star, you're probably wondering, what's that all about? Well, as you can see from behind me, I was once a member of a 90s boy band. We were called Bad Boys Inc. and we had a few hits across the world. It was never my intended path to become a pop star. I wanted to be a professional football player. But I was plucked from obscurity and I was given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity which I wasn't going to turn down. Hence, the name of the channel. So what I do is I interview pop stars, both past and present, about their own careers and their own path in the industry. And then I just sort of try and compare and contrast my story with theirs. For this episode, I can't quite believe that I've pulled this off, but I really am so excited to bring you an interview with 80s icon Paul Young. Paul has had numerous hits across the world, including a number one in America, which was no mean feat. And he was the first vocalist on the huge charity song Do They Know It's Christmas, and then went on to perform at Live Aid. I'm chuffed to bits that he's here. I can't believe I pulled it off, if I'm being honest. Welcome to the Accidental Pop Star, 80s icon, Paul Young. Hi, Paul. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. It's an absolute pleasure having you on the channel. Are you keeping well?
Yeah, I'm keeping well. Actually, no, I'm not. I thought I had COVID this week. I felt
Oh,
so bad.
no.
Uh, it's another one of those viruses that's going around. We get a sore throat, cold, and I feel quite weak. So I've had that for about 4 or 5 days. I'm hoping I'm going to come out of it soon.
Okay, well, thank you for being here, considering you're not 100%. So we've got plenty to discuss. Can I begin by sort of taking you back to your youth? What was the music scene like for you, Paul, growing up, and what were you into?
Well, I was. It's funny because we started this interview and talking about Tony Hadley, and I always think that there was only about 4 years difference between when I started in the music business and when Tony did, but there was such a massive change. Then, so for him, his sort of influences and the way he started, and also being in London, I think helped because he was on the club scene
Hmm.
almost straight away. But for me, coming from a smaller town and being kind of a few years older than him, my whole scene was the generation before, which was I was listening to Alice Cooper and Rory Gallagher was touring, and it was all this type of thing, So I like the blues. I started listening after pop. I started listening to pop. Um, Actually, I listened to a lot of things. As soon as I was about 14, I was already buying James Taylor, Stevie Wonder, and Free, and other. Island Records was one of my favorite labels. They had loads of fantastic bands. They used to do sampler albums, so I would get to hear all the other bands as well. It was a great idea, and a lot of record companies ran with that idea for a while. So that was the way I started. So when I decided to be in a band, first of all, I'd fool around in my bedroom. I'd try and pick up some big bits of guitar and sing in the bedroom like most people do. But then as soon as I quit school and I got an apprenticeship and got some money, um, I started auditioning to be in bands, and I
Hmm.
didn't get to be a singer straight away. So I used my savings to get a bass guitar and an amp, and that was the first thing I did. I was a bass player in a band.
Hmm. Um, was there a sort of a defining moment when you thought to yourself, no, I want to sing here. I want to front a band. I want to be at the front. Was there a defining moment?
I don't know if it's a defining moment. It was a very gradual thing. So,
Hmm.
so the band I was in, uh, well, because everyone was listening to blues and rock and things like that, and the other bands I didn't mention were Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, and they
Yeah.
seemed to consume every band in Luton where I came from. So the first band I joined, that's all they did, and they wrote a couple of their own songs. obviously not very good because they're only just starting, but in that style. And so that was my bass playing style because I liked Free and Paul Rogers the singer, but I like and Andy Fraser as a bass player played in a very unusual style. He left a lot of gaps, and so it wasn't fluid bass playing like you'd get in rock music. So it didn't really fit that band.
Okay.
And I joined the second band where we still did Zeppelin stuff, but the guitarist whose band it was had got a wider taste, so he introduced me to Van Morrison, Greg
Mm,
Allman.
mm,
He just bought the Bruce Springsteen album Born to Run,
mm.
and he lent that to me, and I went, "Wow, this is fantastic!" Because up until that point, I was listening to a lot of blues and soul, but he was listening to all sorts of stuff. And then I started to I would do backing vocals. I was the only one that would do backing vocals in the band. Um, but then I said, "Can I sing a couple of songs as well?" And by this point, the lead singer, I think, quite liked the idea of me doing two or three songs in the middle because he had a break and he could go to the bar and say, "Yeah, I'm the swing, I'm the singer in the band," So and lead me to it. But so I did "Ain't No Sunshine," which I know it sounds old fashioned now, but it had not long been out,
Mm,
when
mm.
I did that. But I also he was so into Zeppelin, he even looked like Robert Plant.
Oh,
But
really?
I was into Aerosmith, and I did Walk This Way. I mean, we're talking back in 1977, so when the Toys in the Attic album first came out. And so I did that for a while. Then I started to say, look, I can't really play bass, and I can't sing as well as I want to sing if I'm concentrating on playing bass as well. So I'd like to be the singer. And there was a lot of to and fro on this, and I got bored. And then I was scouted by a band from London called Street Band, and they'd come to a studio in Luton where I'd made some demos and said they wanted to. They were expanding as a band, and they wanted to get a lead singer themselves. And the guy that ran the studio, Don, said, "Oh, this band came in the other day, and I thought the singer had a good voice." So they had a listen, and then they got my phone number from him and called me up and said, "Would I be interested in being their lead singer?" And I thought, well, I'm getting nowhere with the band I'm in, and
Mm.
so I said yes.
Your voice has a natural warmth and emotion that I personally think is instantly recognizable. How did you find your tone, Paul? Was it instinct? Did you have to work at it? Did you have to craft it? What happened? How did it work?
Um, well, like I said, I started off with blues bands, but Free were a blues band that started making pop records. So I had that going on, and then this band that I then joined, they were like a funk rock band
Right.
uh, that also liked. So although they liked Robert Palmer and things like that, who had a funky edge when he first started or went solo. They also loved the Small Faces and the Who. So
Yeah.
once again, there was this curious um, sort of pressure from each side. In fact, the Small Faces and the Who both listened to American R&B music anyway, but they just had a rockier edge. So somewhere in amongst that, I found my voice. And when you hear those, they're very virginal with the street band albums, and I don't have a particular style, but I found my style once that band split. And we had a little dalliance. Street band got a brass section for a while, just for a couple of weeks when the lead guitarist got married.
Okay.
So we didn't want to cancel the gigs we got, or we needed the money. Um, and the guitar player knew a sax player and a baritone player. So we just turned up to the gigs we were supposed to be playing as street band and said, "Oh, we're going to do a soul show tonight," and so we'd learn a bunch of R&B standards, and I did that for a couple of weeks. I really enjoyed it. It felt comfortable to me to sing that.
Yeah.
So the band carried on, but we had that one hit, Toast, which effectively um, killed the band off. But there were three of us left. And I said, why don't we get a brass section again, like we did last time? And there's a mod movement going on. These it's strange that how things seem to happen every 4 years. There's a sway of music seems to change, and so if we got a brass section again, we could definitely get some gigs. We weren't even thinking about a record deal at this point.
Mm.
We were just thinking about getting a band going and get some cash in our pocket.
Was that Q-Tips, the band that was formed?
Yeah,
Okay,
and so
go
that
on.
was our remnants of street band, and we actually went under. We first called ourselves the Harrow Horns, and we thought that was boring. So then we changed it to Q-Tips, which I thought was stupid. I didn't like either of them. But then Q-Tips started getting gigs, and so did the Harrow Horns. So we were doubling up, for a while.
Mhm. What did that period in the Q-Tips teach you about performing on stage?
Yeah, I learned a lot from the Q-Tips because as the band kind of fluctuated, it got better. We had two guitar players, no keyboard player. And this was when I met Ian Cooley, who became quite a big part of my life. He came to see us play. I think his friends had told him, hey, there's a soul band and they play in St. Albans at this pub, let's go and see them.
Mm.
So he came to see us, but we had two guitar players and we were having a drink afterwards. And he was going, you need a Hammond player in your band. You can't be a soul band unless you got a Hammond player. And so he kind of talked himself into the band. And then we decided to lose one of the guitar players. And so then the lineup got stronger, the sound got stronger, and we ended up with a deal with Chrysalis.
Yeah. Can I jump ahead, Paul, to the time when you decided to go solo after the Q-Tips?
Right.
How was that transition for you? Because when you're in a band, you can lean on each other for support, be it emotional, whatever. But
Yeah.
when you go solo, am I right in saying that all of a sudden there is a loneliness to it? And did you feel that?
Uh, no, because I was lucky. Because once again, talking about this very small 3 or 4 years, um, it was all about the kind of connection between the people. It was tough to leave the Q-Tips. But there was once again a natural progression where the mod revival had come and gone.
Mm.
So they were on to the next thing, which was Spandau Ballet, by the way, because they signed to Chrysalis about 3 years after us, or and no, maybe even less than that. But so the keyboard player and myself, we said we need to update the sound of the Q-Tips and let's start writing some songs where they're R&B influenced, but it's not a straight lift, of that sound. And so we thought we were going in the right direction, but most of the band didn't like it. They were happy with what they were doing. They're going, "Why change it? It's working, and we're
Mm.
earning money."
Mm.
I thought, well, unless we change, we're not going to last. So I had a bunch of songs with Ian that we'd written, and they were just sat there doing nothing. And then, sure enough, when it came to the end of our contract with a possibility to renew, Chrysalis were obviously thinking the same thing, and they didn't renew the contract. So they thought, well, this is over now. So the manager of the Q-Tips went looking for another record deal, but most labels that he went to said, no, that's over. But Singer's got a great voice, and if he wants to do something, we're interested.
Okay.
So, things just seemed to happen very naturally, and I think I didn't feel the loneliness because I knew that if I was going to do this, I'd started writing songs with Ian, and I said to the manager, "Well, if you think I should go for it, then I want to take Ian as well." And so we became the threesome, and we were really tight.
Yeah.
So unlike when I listened to Nick's early years, he was very much on his own. He was working at home, he was doing all his own stuff, and then when it happened, and it happened for him very quickly, um, a massive period of readjustment, whereas mine had been very gradual. I did 3 years on the road with Street Band, 3 years on the road with the Q-Tips. It was getting bigger, it was getting better, and I felt that when I got to this point, I was ready,
Yeah.
really.
Okay. Because at that time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were 26, I think, when you signed your solo deal with Columbia Records. So by that point, you're, as you've just said, you're already quite experienced. But from a business point of view, from the business side of the industry, were you versed on that side of it? Did you ever need to seek independent advice about deals or publishing deals, whatever the case may be? And I'm also intrigued to know, Paul, did your parents ever get involved in your career? Did they ever sort of guide you? Did they want to make sure you were going down the right path?
Uh, no, they didn't.
Oh,
They
really?
wouldn't have no, they wouldn't have had a clue
Okay.
um, what to do. So I, uh, as far as my dad was going, he he didn't see a future in it. But he was kind enough to say, look, if you do your apprenticeship and you get your papers, so you've got a job to fall back on,
Yeah.
then he said, then why don't you have a go at it if you really, really want to do it? It's almost like, people before they go to uni, they spend a bit of time going to India and you know what I mean, that kind of
Mm,
thing. So
mm,
I think my dad thought, oh yeah, he'll go and do that for a few years, but then he'll go back to his normal job. But what I did have is the manager was originally the agent for Street Band,
oh,
and
brilliant.
he'd gone. He went to Sheffield Poly, and this is Jed Doherty, who eventually became head of Sony Records not so long ago. So he's a very clever guy, and I was very lucky, I think, to get him at the right time. So he knew somebody working in an agency, who became the bass player in Wang Chung. Uh, and so he said, "I'm quitting my job at the agency. Do you want to take my place?" And I'll put in a good word. So my manager Jed went into the agency. He went to see Street Band, put the gigs on. Thought not sure about the band, but that seems got something. So he had
Mm,
his eye on. And when they split, he said, "Keep in touch with me and let me know what you're up to." And so every so often I'd go to a call box as you did back then, and I'd call him and tell him what I was up to, and I'd say not much at the moment. I'm messing around. I'm talking with the boys in Street Band about maybe getting a soul band together. There was a little moment here that I sometimes forget to bring up. Um, in that when I was in the Q-Tips and we've got going, but we hadn't got management at this point. Someone got a message to me to call Rack Records Mickey Most,
yeah.
and so I did. Went to the call box and called
Cool.
Mickey Most. And I just thought, I wondered if you'd be interested in a solo record deal. I mean, that's quite. Uh, and for me, I was completely naive. Then I had no one I could turn to, but I just had a feeling in the back of my head that I'd seen what was going on at Records, and it was very much to do with the songs were written by songwriters. Uh, the bands seemed to be very controlled by the label, and I thought, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I haven't given
Mm,
myself a fair chance. I've got
mm,
ideas, and I feel like I know what a good record is and how to make a good record. I just need time to find myself. So I turned him down and carried on with the Q-Tips. And then, like I say, that was 3 years. And then it was actually Ian, the keyboard player, who said, "You've outgrown this band. You need to be doing something else." And I could have turned around to him, "Thanks for the information. See ya," but
mm,
Ian was so honest and such a great musician that I wanted to keep working with him.
mm. After you signed your record deal, your solo record deal, just purely in terms of chart success, it didn't quite work out for the first two records. So for Wherever I Lay My Hat, was there a different strategy put in place? And did you get involved in those discussions?
The strategy that we had was uh, so Ian and I had written these songs that didn't go down well with the rest of the Q-tips. So and then we got the offer of the solo deal. So we did some demos, and Ian said, right, so there's new technology out now. There's this thing called a synthesizer. So I'm going to buy one, and I'm going to embrace that. As much as he loved playing Hammond and piano, he said, I'm going to have to embrace this new technology. And then through a drummer that we use in Mark, who's still my best friend to this day, and he plays in Los Pecaminos, and he played
Mm,
on the first two really successful albums.
mm,
He found the producer Laurie Latham. Once again, we found like a synergy between the three of us with Ian and myself and Laurie. And then Laurie was producing indie bands, really. Um, well, he was engineering. He was actually engineering Manfred Mann in Manfred Mann's studio, but in his spare time, he would get free time and he'd produce much more trendy bands, you know. So we got him, we got Ian, who wanted to embrace the latest technology. So then I'd got loads of songs that are not just what we'd written, but songs I'd heard that thought that's a great song, you know, but the arrangement would never work now.
mm.
And so we just started to work on those. Iron Out the Rough Spots was um, one of the first, and that actually sums up what No Parley became, which is an old song embracing new technology. And I actually took uh, the idea of Iron Out the Rough Spots. I kind of nicked a little bit from the Tom Tom Club. I don't know if you remember them.
No, no.
That, it was Tina Weymouth from Talking Heads and Chris, can't
Yeah.
remember his last. And so they did a song called Wordy Rapping Hood, where there were lots of little sounds that were popping in and popping out from nowhere. So I said, that's what I want us to do with this old song, you know, to make it more modern. And so we just said, right, the gloves are off. We've got new technology. We can do anything we want now because we always used to record, set up as a band and play. And that's how the Q-Tips made albums. So we said, well, um, we can't do that now. The record is the all important thing. So we start from the ground up. How do we want to do this? And each song that we took, we said, what kind of treatment could we do? What would work with this song? And so the first single got a lot of radio play.
Mm.
It was very poppy, but it didn't really catch. The second one was "Love of the Common People,"
Yeah.
which,
The
which,
new release.
yeah. And what happened there was my performance on um, on the tube.
Mm.
So I was lucky enough, or CBS were lucky enough to get me on the tube. But Love of the Common People was already starting to lose its plays,
Okay.
and it had been taken off the press.
Okay.
And so then all of a sudden they flew out the shop, but we'd missed our chance.
Right.
So now
Understand.
we knew that people knew me. And the next song we had was Wherever I Lay My Hat. But what happened with that was instead of being, if you call it over produced, like Iron Out the Rough Spots was lots of pings and sounds and things like that. We thought, no, we're going to go really sparse on this song. So each one was taken song by song. And it was just luck that um, Maz, who was one of the singers, was taking rough mixes home, and her boyfriend was Pino Palladino. And so um, he said, "Tell them if they want to base on something, I'm up for it because I really like what I'm hearing."
Okay.
So we thought, well, let's get him in on this one because it's a slow song, and he's got that languid kind of style because it's a fretless. And the next thing you know, the whole song just started to grow in shape.
It's so interesting, Paul, because I was finishing off my prep this morning to come and speak to you, and I thought I want to go back and look on the archives to
Mm.
see to trace how this record went. I was astonished to see that Wherever I Lay My Hat first entered the charts at number 84. And then over a period of 3 weeks, it climbed the
Oh,
charts significantly. And
yeah.
obviously eventually ended up at number one. So it went 84, 62,
Mm.
30, 12, 3, 2, 1. So
Uh,
between 84, 62, and 30, what gave it the momentum to kick on?
I think once it started to pick up the radio play,
So
the
important. So
record
important, isn't
company,
it?
yeah, oh, very much so.
Yeah.
The the they managed to get me on almost every afternoon TV show.
Okay.
I did them all of the breakfast shows. I did the midday shows. I forget what they were called now, but they were really, really well known. Everybody used to watch them, and I think it was the combination of me and the the other thing was I went through a few wild hairstyles in between the Q-tip and the beginning. I did that thing where I had my hair cut short on one side and long on the other, like Phil Oakey and things like that. And my manager said, I think if you're going to be a solo star, you need to stick with one image, So I said, oh, okay, I'll go with the cropped hair like I used to have, the short crop, and and suits. We'd gotten into suits because of the Q-tips, and so I think that whole image of that was quite. It's a very. It's not. It's actually not a romantic song. It's about a guy who realised he's wasted his life.
Yeah.
Well, the way Marvin Gaye sings it is he's a happy-go-lucky guy. Wherever I lay my hat, that's my home. And we approached it as a little bit more of a. It's actually quite a lonely life and a little bit of an empty life.
Mm.
Uh, and my role was to be the person who's thinking, this isn't what life's all about. It's like, and but whatever it was, it caught the public's imagination, and then it was painstakingly slow watching it go up the chart like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I was astonished. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
Um, it's it,
every
the
time
im
we thought it would stop,
oh,
every week
really?
well, it's going to slow down, you
Right,
know,
right.
and
And it
mm,
did it sold what was over 500,000 it did, right? Is that
I
right?
think so.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. You just mentioned image again, which is a very, I think, important topic. MTV was really starting to come to the fore, Top of the Pops particularly. They were huge vehicles for pop stars. So how did that visual side of promotion impact how you approached performing plus your own image?
Um, I, I think that each song I kind of took a slightly different approach on. So I think it was very important for Wherever I Lay My Hat, and quite significant the fact that I was wearing suits and looking smart and singing this kind of song, this lament. Um, and so when Love of the Common People came out, it needed to be more because it was coming up to Christmas. They said we needed a Christmas hit. I went, Love the Common People already had bells on it. It was all going dong, dong. It had
Yeah,
tube
yeah,
bells and
yeah.
stuff like that. And that's the reason why it works so well. Um, but when it came to stage, my clothes always have to be more functional because through years being in the Q-tips, I was dropping to my knees all the time. That I'd taken all the knees out of trousers. I had holes in my trousers that I used to cover up with gaffer tape when we were in the Q-tips because I couldn't afford to buy another suit.
We used to, believe it or not, I swear this is true. When we used to perform, because our dance routines were so, high energetic and all that, I used to cover the soles of my boots with Coke to make my boots sticky so that I didn't slip.
Yeah.
It was the best piece of advice I was ever given. Because when we did Top of the Pops for the first time, they put dry ice on the stage,
Oh my
and
God. Yeah.
during rehearsals, we were all over the shop. I went arse over tit so many times. And it was my tour manager that gave me the tip. He says, pour a can of Coke over the bottom of your shoes. It worked perfectly.
I never heard of that one. Well, years later, um, I actually slid off stage in Sydney, Australia. I was playing the entertainment centre. Um, I had the opposite thing happen. So I think because of all of the sugary drinks that were on the stage, my feet were getting stuck. So, and at a sound check, luckily, I kind of half perform when I'm doing a sound check. So I sang, tried to do a quick spin to sing the next line, and got stuck on the stage. And I felt my knee go, a little bit. I went, oh, jeez. And I said, damn, you've got to clean this stage, because one day I'm going to do my knees in, or there'll be something worse. Um, and the guy that had been working with me, this roadie, all through Street Band and Q-Tips and everything, I'd never ever sounded off about anything. So he was so mortified that he got an industrial cleaner to clean the stage, with the big sweeping things like that.
No.
So the next night we went out, it was like an ice rink, and I put gaffer tape on the bottom of my shoes.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, it worked okay. It wasn't quite as slippery. But the first time I decided to do a knee slide, didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Slid right side of the stage, right in between the gap between the end of the stage and the audience, and knocked two ribs out of alignment.
Oh,
Yeah,
mate.
thank God it was on the encore.
Oh, gee, I was just going to say, did you carry on?
Yeah, I managed to get through a little bit breathless on the
Did
last
you?
side.
Yeah, bloody hell.
I was in agony by the time. Then we got on a plane from Australia to LA, and by
Oh,
the time I get off, I was in agony.
oh my God, mate, I can imagine. Talking about America, you had a number one hit in America
Yeah,
with Every Time You Go Away. It's a phenomenal achievement to get a number one. And I don't, people have got to understand, don't underestimate or underrate the achievement. It's huge because the American market is very difficult to break.
yeah,
So what do you think was the key to the success of that record in America? Because interestingly, in the UK, it got to number four.
yeah, yeah. It's written.
Go figure.
Yeah, it to me that's the perfect pop record that I ever made.
Okay. It's a great song.
And I'd got a little bit of interest in America with Come Back and Stay, but they didn't really understand No Parlez now. I think the main problem with particularly the era that I grew up in is we would hear anything and everything on the radio. Like if you were listening to Radio One, and I didn't listen to Radio Two very much back then, but all depending on what time of day
Mm,
listen to, you'd get pure pop during the day. You'd get John Peel at night playing really unusual things. Get much later than that. They
mm,
would start, they'd play anything from Charles Aznavour, Edith Piaf, just whatever. So I was influenced by e everything. Oh, and reggae, you were hearing reggae. So Love of the Common People I'd heard it as a reggae song, and I was trying to get away from that. And the only way I could get away from reggae, because it's got that lovely pulse to it, is to create another pulse, which was the da. Then I could stop thinking about it as a reggae song and put my own imprint on it. But in America, Come Back and Stay piqued their interest. Um, then I was the first voice on Band Aid,
yes.
and then by the time, and then my second album came out with Every Time You Go Away on it, and it was Ian, the keyboard player. He said, "We've got an American." When we finished the album, he said, "We've got an American number one on this album." I
Mm,
went, "Which one?" And he said, every time you go away, I went, do you think? And he was absolutely right.
mm, mm. We'll come on to Band Aid in just a moment. But at this juncture, can I talk to you about fame? Because
Mm.
obviously with your success comes fame. But Paul, it wasn't just you didn't just become famous, you became very famous. How did you cope with your ever-changing profile?
Um, Once again, because I had the same two people with me, we weren't above taking the mickey out of ourselves. So we would do that a lot. And they didn't ease up on me just because I was the front guy, you know.
Yeah, good, good,
at the
good.
famous one. So we kind of kept our feet on the ground that way, you know. But things did um after the second album, I remember on the first album we had to supply a security guy. He was a lovely fella, um, but not the best at doing the job. So then my manager looked around and we found a better guy, you know, and who was who had originally been in the army, you know,
Mm,
and so had a much more uh, not uh, a pragmatic approach to it, and but by the time we got to the second album, I'd got two, and then we were having to negotiate that whole thing about the band leaves in a bus, you leave in the car, but we'll also send a dummy car, and all that kind of stuff was going on. Then when I got to the third album, and it was still like that, it was like before that, it was like let the dust settle. We'll get all of the fans that are trying to get in the hotel out, and then you can see your friends down at the bar. You know, by the time I got to the third album, it was I think you better stay in your room.
yeah.
And then I started getting claustrophobia and hating it. You know, and I actually dipped out at that point and said after this tour, I just don't want to do it anything
Mm,
for a
mm.
while.
How did your family and friends deal with it? Did you, and I'll come into this in just a second, put it into more context for you, but did you ever sense a change from them?
Um, yeah, I still I'm one of those people. I've never had a very big group of friends.
Yeah.
Always had two or three people. Um, and yeah, I know it happens a lot. I've heard it from everybody from Tom Jones on up. You know that. So you go down your local for a pint, then all of a sudden they look at you in a different way,
Yeah.
or it's almost like the piano player stops and everybody turns around. You know,
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah.
I remember going into. I've still got a friend moved to America now. He worked with me in a car plant in Luton, and then he took a job out with General Motors in Detroit, and he still lives in Michigan. And I still look him up, and we get on great because he loves
Mm,
music. I love music. Nothing changed. But when I walked in the pub with him, it was like the whole thing from a noisy hubbub went shum like
yeah.
that, and it was quiet, you know. And
Yeah.
then murmurings and all stuff like that. So yeah, some of my friends stayed the same. Others, in in fact, the guy that was the singer in the first two bands I was in, um, I bumped into him and he said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "What are you doing now?" He says, "Well, I'm doing this and doing that." But he says, "I still want to be a singer, though." And I said, "Well," I said, "if you do, you need to come to London, you know, and start going to see bands, get talking to musicians, find because you're never going to get out of it unless you get out of it." And that's the way it used to be then, you know. Now travel's so much easier, working from home so much easier. Bit you don't have to be in London.
Yeah.
Back then, you kind of did.
Yeah. Yeah. You had
So I
to.
said, "Look, come and see the Q-tips. We've got a massive variety." He said, "Well, you know, I'm not earning that much money." I said, "You don't need it. Just come up. I'll put you on the guest list. You can drink our beer, um, get talking to people. You might meet someone." I tried you three or four times, and each time he never turned up. And
Mm,
last time I said, "Look, I've got a lot of people on the guest list. There's people I'm going to leave off if you tell me you're coming." He said, "Yeah, I'll definitely come this time," and he didn't. And then I just thought, well, you know, it's and so it was kind of I don't know. He wanted it, but he didn't want it, and also I think he resented it a bit because we kind of the friendship didn't stay.
yeah. What I always found, and it troubled me for a long time, Paul. In fact, I think it troubled me for the entirety that I was in Bad Boys. Um, if I went home, for example, and I remember going out for a night out with my pals, and we went to a nightclub. which wasn't overly comfortable with doing.
Oh,
And she asked me to go and dance with one of my pals, and I just didn't want to. I just there was something just holding me back. I was dancing for a living, and I just wanted peace. And
yeah,
she said to me, "Oh, you've changed." And I was like, it went home and it really troubled me. And it was Tony Hadley that helped me with this because he said to me, "Remember one thing, it's not you that's changed, it's them that's changed."
yeah,
And that really helped me with that process to understand it more. Because I actually think I think I doubled my efforts to make people see that I hadn't been affected by it, that I was still the same old Ali. But it's hard. It's hard. I found it hard work.
yeah, yeah. And because I still, I mean, I'm quite quiet really, but when I go out with my friends, I'm kind of affable enough. And I think Tom Jones says, whatever way you do it, you lose. It's like
Mm,
you. He said, if you go to the bar and you get yourself a drink and you get your friend a drink and stuff like that, Pete, Pete would go, well, get around in then, mate. But
yeah.
then if you do get around in, they go, look at him showing off.
Yeah, exactly. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Live Aid. Did the concert change your view of what music can do in terms of socially, politically, spiritually? Did it shift your sense of purpose as an artist?
Yes, it did. Yeah, it did. I was very aware of the power of it, and I was so pleased to be around about uh, and in the music business at that time when that happened. I think we're all very lucky, most of us 80s artists, that it was a bit like the 60s, but more so. Not only did we have the freedom uh, of music, there's so much to listen to, we also had all this technology as well. So that a lot of stuff came out then that sounded very original and still does now. Um, but then I became very aware of what music can do to reach the public. Um, and I could see it happening a lot. I also appeared at the free Nelson Mandela concert and things like that. But
Hmm.
I I can be a bit bloody minded at times, and so in the end, I thought, well, there are people that are far better than me at doing this preaching from a stage. It's not my thing. I've come through that way where, like, the Q-Tips were banned to make people feel happy, and and that kind of thing. I didn't feel like I would be great being a spokesman, and so when I did the Other Voices album, I went completely the other way. And for singles, I thought, right, because I don't do that, I'm going to go completely the other way, and I'm going to put out a record that is just the love song of all love songs, and make it sound absolutely beautiful because there's enough people preaching in the chart. So I
Hmm.
want to go against the grain again and do something that's not like that.
Hmm. Because of the enormity of the event, and I spoke to Nick Kershaw about this as well. Did you prepare for that gig differently to any other gig?
No, and I really wish I had, but it was mainly because,
Sorry, what? Why? Why did you say that?
well, because I think that everybody says the Queen show was so slick, but then the reason the Queen show was so slick, once I'd seen the movie about Queen, I didn't realise that in effect, they'd broken up, and
Yeah, yeah.
but they were
History.
to it.
Yeah.
So they came together and said, "Well, what are we going to do then?" So so they weren't on the road. I was on the road, so it was a case of which songs are we going to do then? We've got 20 minutes, so we chose which songs we were going to do, and to be honest, we flew over, did the concert, and then I flew back, pretty much, and so. I in retrospect, I think what I should have done is made it really slick, sort of going from one to another.
Okay.
Uh, and But I think I did a good job. Oh, and also in the middle of that as well, um, there was a little wild card thrown in because my manager was helping Alison Moyet out. You know, she was managerless, I think, and so he said, "I've got enough going on with Paul, but I'll help you out for a bit." And um, he said, "She's been asked to appear at Live Aid, but she's got no band, got no management. Would you mind doing a song with her?" And so I ended up doing a song with Alison Moyet as well.
Yeah.
So we did a quick rehearsal of it, and we managed to fit in one show the day before Live Aid, which was down in the Cornwall Coliseum, I think. And and I ran through the song with Alison Moyet, and then the next day we were up and we were doing it. So I mean, we really flew by the seat of our pants on that show.
Yeah, because there was Nick told me there was no rehearsals, there was no technical rehearsal, sound checks, nothing. Get on, do it, get
Yeah,
off. And
yeah.
Nick told me also, which I don't think was common knowledge at the time, but apparently there was a revolving stage
Mhm.
that didn't work. Did you know about that?
I didn't know it didn't work. I know the problem that we had with it was as it as it did go, maybe they did it manually. As it came round and it was my turn to be on, so 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 the main stage that you watch,
Yeah.
as it's going round, there's roadies taking all the equipment off from the band that were on before you, which I think was Brian Ferry, and on the other side you've got the people that are going on next, which
Okay.
was U2.
Oh,
But but U2's snare mic was live, and as the drum roadie was testing the snare like this, it's completely out of tune with the song that we were
oh
doing.
no.
It was a nightmare. So we're just trying to focus on our drummer. Okay, what's going?
Unbelievable. When you think back now to that event, gosh, I know it was a long time ago, I can't believe it. Um, is there an instant snapshot that comes into your mind of feeling about that day?
Well, I think it was the first time I played stadium, so I had a lot to
Ah, was
had a
it?
lot to take in. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I might have done big stages
Yeah,
at festivals, but Wembley's Wembley. You
of
know,
course.
so that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot to take on, and I think I coped very well with it.
Oh,
And
Paul, you
I
were
did the best
sensational.
I could. I always look for places to look and jump around and get around on stage and things like that. But at the same time, I don't want to fall over and make an ass of myself.
Of
But
course, of
um,
course.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and I guess everyone was the same. You didn't know what stage looked like until you walked out on it because there was no sound check.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was an astonishing day. It really was. Watched it from the minute it came on air to the minute it went off air. It was just never forget it. Um, Now, in the current day, Paul, when you revisit your old material live,
Mm.
did you or do you ever feel the urge to sort of reinvent or reinterpret those songs for today's audience? Um, or do you think that these songs are just completely timeless?
I think on the whole, songs like Every Time You Go Away are pretty timeless. So
Yeah.
I don't, I've never really changed that one. Love of the Common People, I'd say after I'd been doing it for about 15 years, I thought, oh, I need to change this up again just for my own sanity, you know. So I did. And so we changed the rhythm into a slight kind of a little bit like Little Feat. So so we gave it a bit of a slight swing feel instead of a straight da 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 da. Da. Uh, we we changed it to da 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 da, you know, like, and made it a little bit more funky. And we had so many complaints when we got to Israel that it was their favorite song, and they said, "Oh, we love the Common People." So then I did it in the show, and when I came off, they went, "That wasn't the Love of the Common People we remember. Can you go back and do it again?"
Oh no, really?
the way we like it. So I thought sometimes it's just not worth
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Uh,
When they love them, they love them. You know?
yeah. Um, how do you, because obviously the music industry has now changed so much, it's unrecognizable. So how do you, in this day and age, define success?
Ask me that one again.
Okay, so the music industry now has changed so much. You know, it's not as if people now go out and buy a record, they buy a CD, they buy an LP, and it goes into the charts, and you know how it goes into the charts. Everybody now downloads and streams.
Yeah.
So, in terms of releasing records and albums and performing, you know, how, because I asked Pat from Hue and Cry about this, how does he now define success? Is it how many people turn up to their gigs? Is that now more important over, say, how many streams or how many downloads they get? And he's had to sort of tune his brain to understand how it now all works. Did you get me? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I do. Yeah. I have to be honest, I haven't really got a grasp on it as well as some people do. Um, because I'm just I'm not that much of a show off that I want people inside my life all the time.
Okay.
When I'm up there, and I love doing it. But
Yeah.
these constant kind of talking to cameras and things. Actually, Tony's better at it than me. You know.
He's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and
He's very
so
natural.
I know you have to do so much of that, the social media stuff, but it, there's a little part of me that still wishes if I did my social media well enough, it would act
Mm.
in the same way that advertising would do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Because
something I really
so many
turn my
people
attention.
these days, they define their success by how many people follow them on social media.
Yeah, I
I can't
guess
do
I
it.
would.
I
Yeah,
don't do that.
yeah. Um, I don't think that's a very true reading because as in my generation, um, there's still a lot of people that only mildly follow social media in the way of Facebook and Insta. Yes, you know, not so much in the way of TikTok.
Mm.
So it's like, yeah, it's how to reach them, and I think um, I think concerts is probably the best way to judge it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Okay, last question to finish off. Um, if you could turn back the clock and change anything from your career or do something differently. So, to
Mm.
give you an example, I wish we had sacked our management company. So, if you could have done something different, what would you like to change?
Uh, I should have honed my songwriting a bit more. Uh,
Okay.
I was I didn't have that many hits of my own, um, and but at the same time, it didn't really it, it didn't worry me at the time. But then um, I realised that the musician has so many more expenses, touring live, you're doing all this stuff, and you know, all to get people to buy the record and for it to be a success. And so now it doesn't really work like that. The only person that's pretty much untouched by all this is the songwriter. You know, his percentage is his percentage. It's only the amount of work the musician puts into it that makes the record sell. So I kind of wish that in retrospect I paid more attention to songwriting. I still don't think I think I write nice songs, but what is a pop song? And I don't think I know.
Hmm. Do any of us?
Do any of us? Sometimes an arrangement can change a whole song, though. I do know that much because I've
Hmm.
done a lot.
Hmm. Paul, honestly, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on. Thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you get better soon. So, thank you. I really appreciate your time.
A pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. So there you have it. I really hope you enjoyed today's chat with Paul Young. And if you did, I would be very grateful if you would please consider subscribing to The Accidental Pop Star here on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything. All it means is that you're simply following, very much like TikTok, X, Instagram. Thank you so much for your continued support to those who do subscribe to The Accidental Pop Star. So there you have it. I really hope you enjoyed today's chat with Paul just as much as I did. Thank you so much for watching. Keep an eye on my social media channels because we have plenty of interviews coming up in the next few weeks. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.